today. There's no stream fraud happening, but there's a lot of candidate fraud happening. And Mary's here from the Recruitment Bureau of Investigation to help us out. Thanks for showing up. Give us a shout out on LinkedIn if you can see us. I just saw Taylor. Taylor, you're saying good things. If you can see and hear us on LinkedIn, just give us a thumbs up. That's how this AMA is going to work. Just interact with us and comment, ask any of the questions that you want. Mary, why don't you just introduce yourself for the folks?
Okay, so hi everybody. I'm Mary Papagiannis. I am the what's my title? Senior Talent Manager at ZayZoon, where I handle all things recruitment. I have been working in recruitment in tech for over 10 years now, and working in recruiting overall for even longer than that. And now I've somehow found myself as a fraud expert and creator of the Recruitment Bureau of Investigation.
Are you really taking that to the are you going to run into some copyright issues with the American government?
We'll see. We'll see.
We'll
For
see.
now.
Yeah. You get a cease. How amazing would that be if you got a cease and desist from the FBI or
That'd
the?
be sweet.
Oh my God, that's something to frame right there.
There you go.
So today, well, like context wise, Mary was at our summit last year. Thanks, Tim. I see what you're doing there. And you of all people should know not to joke about whether or not I can be heard or not. So I appreciate you. So context wise, Mary was part of our lightning talks at the summit last year. And one of the most popular lightning talks of all time for the People group. And we started seeing some comments in the community, and I was at a dinner maybe a month ago. And somebody was like, I'm having so much trouble with candidate fraud. It's coming up. And then the conversation around the table started going. And I'm like, well, let me introduce you to Mary. And I was like, I flipped Mary a note. Mary's like, oh my God, I've been trying to record an answer for this person. So redo the whole thing. I was like, why don't we just talk about this for an hour? And she's like, great. So that's kind of why we're here. I won't spend too much more time. I want to pass the mic over to you, Mary, but I've got a couple of things in terms of housekeeping. So first off, obviously, I'm Martin, run the People group, community of 6,000 plus HR recruitment operations professionals. Our mission is to economically empower as many people as possible. And in terms of today's session, basically use LinkedIn. There's a lot of comments already. Use LinkedIn to ask your questions of Mary as we dive into things. First questions that show up, not every question will get answered. And if they aren't, Mary and myself and the couple of community ambassadors will be answering them in the recruiting channel, I guess, in TPPG. If you're not a member, head over to the peoplegroup.com to become a member. This is a conversation, not necessarily a keynote. So jump in with any questions in advance. And we'll try to get it to as many as possible. We are there. I'm not going to spare us any icebreakers. I feel like we've got a great rapport already. Let's just set the stage for us just in terms of maybe some definitions.
Sure. Okay. So I think people can kind of get mixed up around what fraud can mean in this situation, because there's fraud in terms of scammers trying to get access to really sensitive data, and bad apples, if you will. And then there's also fraud in the sense of real candidates misrepresenting themselves or misrepresenting their experience or how much they know about a certain topic, and kind of using AI to boost that up a little bit. I don't like using the word fake, because there's real people involved that are still kind of doing aspects of fraud, if you will. And so that's why I kind of veer more towards that word instead, because there's different things that are happening when it comes to all of all of these like boost in AI assisted applications and interviews, and whether it's someone just like genuinely trying to get a foot in the door and get a job versus someone trying to like have bad intentions and get access to data that they shouldn't.
Okay. No, you were very particular on that. You're like, we're not going to
Mm-hmm.
call them fake candidates.
Yeah.
Like, okay, all right, uh, and that's a perfectly good reason as to why.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, folks, like a friendly reminder, if you're watching, this is the part where you type in questions in your LinkedIn comments, and Mary will I'll pass them over to Mary as they come along. I guess kind of while we wait for those to generate and build up, in terms of your just experience with this, like how did this all come about?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this all kind of started for me in like January, February of last year. So a lot of the stuff that people are kind of like starting to see now and is becoming kind of like commonplace, what no one was even talking about it this time early last year. And so how it all started for me truly was that I had a senior dev posting, and we had kind of exhausted the Canadian market, and so it was like, okay, well, where else do we go from here? Well, let's post it to the US and see how that goes. And so I posted it to a bunch of different states, and it was like, oh my god, I was like, I've unlocked the secret here. I'm getting the best profiles. Oh my god, I've solved our issue with like applicant volume and quality. And there are these like amazing resumes that were coming in that like matched our job description perfectly. And I like didn't clue in yet. I was just like, wow, this is the untapped market. And so I was like so stoked. I booked all these calls, um, and I went to go do one of them where the phone number didn't work. And
Okay.
I do phone screens as my like actual phone screens as my first touch point, just because I want to try and keep as much bias out of the like top of funnel as I can. And so I just do a phone screen that way. I don't see anybody, I don't see their backgrounds, and I'm also not like, sometimes in the first like 10 minutes when you're talking to someone, and I don't
Yep.
want to make someone go through all the effort of like doing their hair
Yep.
and getting all ready for an interview, being on camera when it may end in 10 minutes. And so I do phone screens. I can see the wheels turning in your
I was
head.
just like, I'd never thought of it that way, and that's so
Yeah,
kind and empathetic of you. So like, that's awesome. Yeah.
thanks. And so I do phone screens, and so I went to go call this person, and the phone number wasn't in service. Like it didn't even ring. It just didn't work. Like it wasn't a number. And so I was like, that's kind of weird. And so I emailed them and I said, hey, like, phone number doesn't work, which also sometimes this happens to me where I get filtered for spam because I use like a VoIP line. And so I have a few sentences I always send out of like, it might be spam, I might be getting blocked. Like, let me know, give me a call. And they're like, oh, my phone number doesn't work right now, let's do like a Zoom or a Meet. Which I was like, okay, sure, this happens sometimes, people are traveling, whatever, right? And so I go to do the Meet, and we start the interview, and I can tell they're using AI like to answer these questions. Like it's obvious that they're reading and they're doing the whole like, that's a great question, let me think about it, and taking like an unnaturally long pause. And then they're reading, and I'm like trying to dig in to their answers, and they can't quite like follow up. And so it's like very, very obvious that they're using AI. And I'm like, I don't think this person has actually done this job before. Like even basic questions a bit that I could answer about being a developer, I could tell something's not adding up here. And so then I wrapped up the call. And again, these are American candidates. So I should be able to like Google their name, their full name. I have their email, and find out like everything about them, where they were born, their mother's maiden name, their last like three addresses.
Yeah.
All right. And like, I'm not finding too much. And then I like tried to like dig deeper, and this is where the like recruiting Bureau of Information comes up, investigation comes up, because like I'm like a part-time agent here, like trying to find out everything I can about this person.
Yeah.
And then I find this like legal document about something about like with their landlord, but that was it. And I was like, this is so weird. Like, what is going on here? And there was no LinkedIn profile, which like sometimes staffs don't have LinkedIn because they don't want recruiters to reach out. And I was like, this is so weird. I've never seen anything like this before. And I was like, wow, what a weird story to tell one day. And then like then the next day it happened again, like almost the exact same thing.
Wild.
And I was like, what is going on here? Like, hang on. And no one was talking about it yet. And so I was like, is it me? Like, what's going on? Am I like making things up? And then it happened again. And then I started to kind of like take a look at, okay, hang on. Like, let me see if I can catch this before I get on the phone with people. And sometimes I would like go to find their LinkedIn profile and it'd be broken, or they wouldn't have one, or they would have like someone else's picture. I'd reverse Google search the picture, it'd be someone else's profile.
Reverse Google search images. Like this is, I
That's
mean,
what I mean,
it's RBI. It's real.
right?
Yeah.
And it's like I do these skills for my friends who are dating, so I can try and find info on the guys that they're gonna go on dates with. But never thought I'd be doing this like in a work setting. And then I discovered like, okay, hang on, something bigger is happening here. And then had conversations with our security team, with our C-suite, because the nature of the data we deal with is very, very sensitive. Like we have payroll data in our system, and so once I kind of got wind of all this, it was like, okay, this is really important to figure out how we combat this, especially when it was so early on. There was no features and ATSs or anything like that. And so I had to get really creative. And that's where it all started.
So yeah, it's trial by fire, and now you've become the person kind of on a crusade to like help other
Yes.
people, and we've got some awesome questions that have come in now. So
Cool.
Jackson, he's a partner over at Lutra. Hey Jackson, what techniques do you use to screen for fake, fraud, malicious profiles coming inbound into the ATS?
Okay, there's a few things. I mean, like, the first obvious one is if you're using an ATS with some sort of like fraud detection feature, turn it on. I know that there sometimes can be an extra cost to it, or I know with Ashby, it's like you have a certain amount of tokens that you can use for different AI features, and the fraud detection falls into that. And so sometimes people want to like save them for things. I think the first thing right off the bat, if you have the feature, turn it on. If it costs money, have that conversation with whoever it is that you need to have that conversation with, because I think it's a very clear value prop for leadership, and like for any, if you have a security team, to say, hey, if we spend this money, is unlikely, or the likelihood lessens of having someone come and fraud our entire organization. I think the buy-in to that, I would hope, would be pretty strong. And even with Ashby too, if you're like, no, I want to save those tokens, well, I think the best bang for your buck is going to be on the fraud detection piece. And if you don't have a system that does that, I have some other tips too. But also, I highly recommend finding a way to get some sort of tool that will help you with it, because the manual work involved is like, it's a lot. It's too much. And also these systems can find things that you can't. So even when I was trying to do things manually and like look people up and reverse image search, okay, cool. But Ashby will also tell me, hey, this is how old someone's email account is. This is the amount of accounts associated with it. Here's their phone number. Here's the caller ID on that phone number. Here's the IP that they're using. Here's the location that it could come from. I can't do that level of investigation. And
Yeah.
so, number one, use tooling if you can. If that's not an option, there are other like tricks that I've like figured out along the way. Because again, I was trying to figure this all out when there was no
Right.
detection in any tooling, and so I think a big one is LinkedIn. Like one of the first things I did was I required a LinkedIn profile in the application, and it doesn't have to be LinkedIn. I put a portfolio or GitHub or whatever the case is, just some sort of like online presence link to get a sense of if you are a real person or not. And sometimes like developers don't have a LinkedIn, but they'll have a GitHub or they'll have something, right? Because people who are doing this in bad faith either don't have the LinkedIn, they'll provide a link that is broken just to get through the like required field. They have a LinkedIn that is fraudulent. Like you can tell there's like 10 connections on it. The profile age is like a year old. Like it's obvious. The one that's not obvious is sometimes I've also had people put someone else's, like a real person's LinkedIn profile and act as them and create a resume as that person. Yeah, it's crazy. And pretend to be them when it's not at
Mm.
all. So there are ways around that, obviously, but requiring a LinkedIn profile, number one, I think if you have no budget, is the easiest thing that you can do. The other thing is I do recommend doing the phone screens as a step. If you don't do phone screens, I think, if there's a phone number on the application, call it ahead of time. Act like you're just like confirming the interview so that
Right.
you can check, like, is this phone number in service? Because again, like a lot of the times, it's not a real number. They're using someone else's phone number. It's a big, big tell, and it saves you a lot of time. Um, my like biggest tip is having some sort of like application question where you are kind of like tricking AI, because a lot of the people are also using AI or bots or something to apply for them. They're not
Mm.
spending all the manual time to put an effort and fill out an application. And so that is kind of like the biggest way to combat some of this fraud manually, is think of an application question that you can use to see if someone, or confirm if someone is using AI to answer application questions. And that will change for everyone's org. For me, I figured out that if I ask which of our core values resonates the most with you, a lot of different models like get them wrong, and I don't know what it is. I like can't figure it out. And I implemented this in like March of last year, and I thought, by
Yeah.
the end of the year, they'll have caught up with me. Like I'm not that smart, and like somehow I don't know, they still haven't caught up. This question still works, but they get the core values wrong every single time. I've tried different models, even with all these different upgrades, like they can't get it right. And so that tells me, okay, this person's probably using AI. And I'm not trying to like trick candidates. I'm not trying to like add friction to the process for real candidates trying to genuinely get a job and genuinely apply and speak with us. It's more about like there's a link right underneath the question to our core values. It's very, very easy. You don't have to go searching for this. It's not like a weird treasure hunt I'm trying to like send someone on. And so that's a big, big, it's been a huge help, honestly, even before the fraud detection features, to get a sense of like, okay, that's my first flag. Then let me look at the LinkedIn, let me look at all these other pieces to figure things out. And that question may not work for your org. It may be something else entirely. You have to figure out what that is for you and your org to get a sense of, okay, is someone using AI? And then you can kind of go down the path of doing the other things too.
Gotcha. Okay. So we got a ton of questions behind the scenes.
Okay.
And we got a stack. So
Okay.
maybe we turn it into a bit of a speed round here.
Go for it.
Um, what are the different types or kinds of AI frauds that you're seeing?
I think it's either the real people who are again trying to like combat the like evil ATS and the like keywords search and all that kind of stuff. Like part of this is also not from AI use and us using it at top of funnel. Like this friction for candidates has been around for a long, long time. Feeling like people need to like add the white text to the resume and get around the ATS and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And I understand the frustration there and people feeling like they need to embellish on their experience or embellish on what they know about, or they'll go through the interview process and they're just not good at interviewing. And so they use AI to coach them or have it open and kind of give them the answers. Like that's still fraud as well, right? Like you are essentially outsourcing the interview
Yeah.
to AI. even though you're a real person, it's still kind of, you're being fraudulent about what you know and your experience and that kind of thing. But then on the other side, there's the scammers who are using AI and being fraudulent in the sense of they want to get hired so they can get access to the really sensitive data and exploit it and do whatever that they want to do with that.
Right. Right. Um, and this is Rona. She's head of talent over at New. She's noticed this only mainly with engineering. I
Mm-hmm.
think there are some obvious signs. Name doesn't match the resume would, but it would be extremely helpful if you could talk about how to identify flags at the recruiter level, but also at the engineering stages as we're going to
Mm-hmm.
live coding so that candidates. So it's like, let's say, for example, you're a human being,
Mm-hmm.
fallible. Someone slips through, and
Mm-hmm.
now the eng manager or a developer is interviewing a developer. What have you seen stuff around that? What does
Oh
that
my
look?
God, constantly. Even like 2 weeks ago, I was on a thread with our like our engineers who were like, I think this person's using AI. Or there was another one where they were like, this person's eyebrows are flickering. Like, I don't know if they're like a real Yeah, wait, Martin, are you a deep fake?
Yeah, imagine
Um
we missed a huge opportunity here, right? Like surprise is a fake interview. Yeah.
so like there's it happens in the annual actual like face-to-face video interviews in the technical all the time. And I think like you can tell when someone is using AI to talk about things that they just don't have the depth of experience with, and I think especially from an engineering perspective, they can tell right away. I think it's harder for us as recruiters sometimes to get the technical depth and understand like all these different words, Datadog and Terraform and CloudFormation, and you're like, what? Oh, okay. But like someone in engineering, I think will also pick that up really fast. Of like, okay, well, they are speaking at this from this level. If I ask a clarifying question, they can't speak to it from this level. I think the other thing too is like I coach them in that situation where it was happening live of like I can't tell if they're using AI. The candidate was also said that they were using like, oh, they were like, oh, let me like write in my notebook, and they would like look down and like do something, but we could hear them typing. And so I also coached them in a really natural way to be like, hey, we're just curious. We kind of want to get a sense of like your line of thinking. Like, do you mind sharing your notebook with us, and getting them to actually show what they were doing? Again, it's a very specific scenario, but I think it's actually easier for more technical interviewers to catch this stuff
Mm,
because they know the depth that is needed. And when you're using like when you're using something with AI, an LLM, using a coach, whatever the case is, it will only go so far before someone realizes you don't actually have experience with this thing.
yeah. Kind of makes me think just like everybody's going back to in-person interviews now as a result of it, or very specifically.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that.
No. Yeah,
No,
let's
because
work on that.
yeah, I think that's the easy answer of like, oh, well, this stuff is happening, so let's just go in person and figure it out that way. But like that doesn't work for every company. Like
Yep.
ZayZoon is fully remote, and by defaulting back to in person, and so like then you lose a whole bunch of really really great talent and a huge market. I think like we have to just get creative and figure out ways to combat it or embrace it is the other piece too that I haven't talked about. Like people are going to use it because as much as you want to try to dissuade usage and tell people, even like I tell people it's okay if you use it, just tell us. People still
Mm,
lie. They use it and they lie. And that's the most frustrating part. It's the like hiding it that becomes a huge culture flag. So um, you can try and embrace it, but I don't like I think going back to in person as the default to like combat all of this, it doesn't work for everybody.
yeah, that's fair. Um, with the rise, Taylor, as an HRBP over at Go Power, thank you for the question. With the rise of fake fraudulent applications, do you feel like the bad outweighs the good when it comes to involving AI in the recruitment process?
Oh, that's a great question.
Uh,
I think like there's this like whole thing right now of like it's AI versus AI. Like we have people using AI to apply, and then we're using AI at top of funnel to go through resumes, and it's just like bots versus bots at this point. I think there are lots of benefits to using AI. I don't like to use AI at top of funnel because it goes back to these traditional like keyword searches and things like that, where I I don't I don't think if someone doesn't have certain words on their resume, that doesn't mean that they're not like the right person for the job. And so
Yeah.
when I'm using AI in recruiting, it's for like the fraud detection stuff. I'm using it for sourcing. But I do believe that there is a certain element of like you need a human at top of funnel to go through things and look at things with a certain eye. And I don't I think it's easy to be like, well, AI is ruining recruiting and that kind of like hot button topic, but there are benefits to it. I think that if you have a person at top of funnel, it also becomes a differentiator. Like for us on our job applications, we have a disclosure where like a real person is going to review your application and your resume. So please like you fill out your application as well. It's a bit more eloquent than that. But we get so much positive feedback, even from people who are rejected, saying like, thank you so much for actually just like taking the time to look at my application. And that's become like a competitive advantage for us.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I saw a poll or something like that a couple of days ago where it's like 75-80% of people like just overall overwhelmingly don't like AI, even though that they're using it. It's just like there's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So for you to go out, it is a, I don't know if it's like a unique value proposition or something, but part of like, it kind of speaks to the culture, right? Not every
Mm-hmm.
company is gonna take that angle. Lots more questions. Justin Lee's a founding recruiter. What strategies have worked well to deter fake fraudulent candidates from applying? Are there specific JD tweaks or application form questions that have performed well? I think you've covered a bit about this, but there's he
I have
niches
more.
down into that question. Yeah.
Yeah, I have more. Um, so yeah, there are those application questions that you can add in. I think with a job description, not really. The other thing that I've started kind of like toying around, even going back to the technical part of like, well, do we have some sort of prompt that is in like white text that says like if you are a bot or if you're using AI, like put this in the code or whatever the case
Yeah.
is. And like I've also started to see people use applications to say, if you are a real person, do not check this box. And it says like I am a bot. And so on the off chance that like a bot will check it or whatever it is, people are trying to get creative and think about these things. But then it also becomes an arms race of like, well, I'm going to implement this tech, but then at some point, like the tech will then catch up to whatever trick you've tried to implement as well. And so I think for us right now, like I'm toying around with adding CAPTCHA to our applications to also try and reduce some of that bot applications volume that we're seeing. And there's also kind of like creating an account to log in and doing 2FA and things like that. But it's like I think there is like a real battle right now between adding friction to the process to reduce spam, but then also like not losing candidate interest at the same time.
You mentioned it's hilarious that Ashby comes up all the time because everybody's a huge fan. They're a
Mm-hmm.
partner of ours. This isn't sponsored by them or anything. They're just coming up. So a lot of comments saying like they do a great job of what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else that you've caught wind of, or like any other tools that have helped you, small or not necessarily an ATS, but just tools in general that you use? Like you mentioned Google reverse image search when you were doing your
Yeah.
FBI work or RBI work, but anything that comes to mind in terms of like, okay, if I'm not going to rely on Ashby or I don't have Ashby, what other things could I jump over to?
Yeah, totally. I haven't. It's been really interesting because there's so much from the applicant side of like use this to automate your application process or use this to do your resume and use this to coach and blah blah blah. But from the recruiter side, like there's just I don't know if it's just not enough demand or what it is, but I'm not seeing a ton of tooling. Like I know Greenhouse added some fraud detection stuff recently
Yeah.
too, so I think more ATSs are trying to ship things to combat this. But I haven't found enough tools otherwise, like outside of systems, to really play around with it. It's just my like main kind of what's the word? Source of defense is the application itself and coming up with these
Right.
like questions to see, okay, well, is someone using AI? And again, it's not about like, are they using AI? It's about like, are they using AI as a signifier to see, is this a real person, and go from there? Because the vast majority of these people doing fraud are using AI.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair. Um, Going through a ton of questions here. I keep scrolling down. Um, let's see. Handling deep fraud fake videos are becoming harder to
Mm-hmm.
detect lately. That's coming from Shari over at, she's a talent acquisition manager at Changemaker. She's literally the one, hey Shari, the one at, we were chatting at dinner and she's like, this is the thing. This is,
Ah.
so it's come full circle. So need to make sure that we get her question taken care of. Yeah, so the videos, seems like the videos is the thing that's giving her the challenge.
The thing with the videos is like, and I've had like little pieces of it. I haven't had a full on, like, I don't know if we've all seen that screenshot of the deep fake candidate. It's kind of become like when you Google like fraud in recruiting, there's this like one screenshot that always comes up of a guy being using a deep fake. Um, I think like, and I don't think I've encountered it that much because I'm catching a lot of it before someone gets to that stage with us, right? Like again, I have a phone screen before I even get to the video, and I'm catching, if I'm not catching it application, I'm catching it on the phone. And so I think if you are finding that there's a bunch of people getting through to that interview process, whatever that is, if it's your first recruiter touch point, your first hiring manager touch point, then they're getting through other pieces first. And so I would go to then your stages before that to then think strategically, how can I catch them at application? How can I catch them at the recruiter touch point, whatever it is, to get ahead of them getting through to a video interview and using a deep fake. And in those cases, a lot of the times it's also like, I haven't talked about this either, but people hiring others to do the interviews for them. Like there's using AI to get coached, but there's also again like using real people in this process to do the interview for them, and then using deepfake on top of that to make it seem like they are someone else. So if you're getting that far in the process, then I would go back to the earlier stages and see where you can kind of like catch them ahead of time.
There are some tools out there that none of them, like their names aren't coming, but like they actually no, ribbon.ai does, and a lot of these tools, for obvious reasons, the market makes more sense for them to do like the high volume recruitment roles,
Mm-hmm.
right? You gotta, you have like 20 jobs and 2,000 applicants kind of deal. But the model in itself is kind of like creates that friction where like, okay, first step in the process is we're going to capture more information via this AI. I'm curious to just get your take on like using AI very, very early stage in the recruitment process. Kind of goes back to that previous question as well.
Yeah, I think like again, it's hard because you get back into this like arms race of AI
Yeah.
versus AI. And then it's like, well, where is the actual person in this process from either side? Like, where
Mm-hmm.
is the candidate? And then where is the recruiter? Like, at what point does an actual person come into this? And so, yeah, I like, again, I use AI top of funnel for our fraud detection. Like I'm using it at top of funnel, but in a really thoughtful way and in a way that gives me more information, not like disqualifies someone or makes a decision or gives me information about like, well, this is a good candidate or not. That's not what I'm looking for from AI. I don't want it to tell me that. I want AI to tell me is what's the quality of this application in terms of like, is this a real person? Is this someone trying to be malicious? Or is this someone just trying to genuinely get a job and have a conversation with me? And so from that perspective, I love AI for that. What I'm not crazy about with AI top of funnel is the like, are they a good fit for this
Mm,
role? Because
right.
then again, like if someone's using AI to do that, well then you're just you're not going to get an accurate response anyways.
So it's like application enrichment questions is thumbs up, but selection and like criteria and like
Yeah.
outsourcing the like filtering completely. Like at some point you're like human in the loop, whereas like you have 1,000
Mm-hmm.
applicants, you're still going to review 1,000 applicants.
Mm-hmm.
But if you enrich the data through one of these tools and still review the 1,000 applicants, you're in good shape. That makes sense. Yeah.
And it's also like, I think talent teams have been hit so hard in the last few years with layoffs where talent teams are really, really lean. And
Yeah.
then we're seeing this like super high volume coming in too, where it's not even like quality volume. You're not even trying to figure out, oh, is this a good applicant for the role? You're trying to figure out, is this a real person or not before you even get to the like, oh, is this good quality application? And so I also like feel for folks where you also don't have time to go through all of those things. But that's where also like the really good knockout questions and application questions come into play. Like I will have a couple hundred applications and I'll look at that core value question in a column. And this goes back to Ashby's kind of, again, not sponsored. I just, what I use. So that's where a lot of my examples come from. But I
Yeah.
can see it quickly at a glance. If I have 100 candidates, well, what did they answer to that application question? And I can filter out. Or if it's a very hands-on role, I have an application question that says like, how hands-on do you want to be? Even not from a fraud perspective, but from a quality perspective. Is this the right person for this role? And make those decisions that way. And it saves so much time without having to use AI to do that instead. And the other thing I want to say about this too is like, I think using AI to say, or using some sort of tool to say, is this a good quality candidate, is how we got into this to begin with. Like, that's how people got frustrated and felt like
Mm-hmm.
they needed to beat a system. And so they're using a tool to combat a tool. And we've gotten into this like spiral now. And so that's what's kind of started it. And so to continue it, well, I think that's kind of the piece that's broken the whole thing.
Yeah. No, fully. That's such a good call on that. You're not saying anything that's controversial that I disagree with, Mary. How dare you? Um, all right. This is going to sound so cringe. I've never said it before in my life,
Oh
but
no.
all right, chat.
Ugh.
Um, we're running out of time. We still got time for a bunch of questions, but there's a lot of questions already there. I could use your help. So if you want to help me prioritize which questions, just thumbs up the questions that you're most interested in getting answered first. We'll just use a little democratic system for everybody watching so far. I will choose the next question. So, Ivan, no, I'm not AI, or am I? I don't know. Let's see here. Do you think so? Ivan's real question is: do you think recruitment practices need to be further adjusted by adding more time spent on assessing the candidates to really
Mm.
ensure everyone we recruit is legit? So, yeah, if you think in terms of, you understand the question, I won't elaborate.
Yeah, I do. I think like more time needs to be spent at top of funnel, reviewing applications and looking into these pieces, like their LinkedIn and all of an online presence, to combat it and to stop it early on and to stop people from getting farther down the process. Like you also, I hope, are using background checks and things like that where someone would get caught before they get hired, but that also doesn't, then you waste a whole bunch of time in a recruitment process where someone's gone through all of these stages and gotten an offer. And so yeah, I think like we need to be more thoughtful. I don't know that that means we necessarily need to be spending more time on the applications. I think we need to spend more time thinking about how we get the right information from people at the application stage. And so again, that goes back to different application questions like how hands-on do you want to be in a role? Thinking about the core values question that I example that I gave. Being thoughtful in setting up the job application and the job description to make sure that you can filter folks out and catch the fraud at the beginning versus trying to like race to keep up with it throughout.
Okay. Um, Next one here. So many. I guess, can you double click on how you've been tackling sort of the impersonation side of things?
Oh, that's so
Because
hard.
that's
Yeah.
become a really big problem. Justin here is having a lot of conversations, which is cool. But yeah, so like stealing, taking real names, LinkedIn profiles that are
Hmm.
real, and making a fake email that's still like first name, last name
Hmm.
with a number, pretending to be that person. Any thoughts or tricks on that side of things?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so there's a few things here. I think number one, again, this is where like a tool that can do fraud detection will be your best friend. Like it will be able to detect a lot of this stuff to tell you that they are impersonating someone in a way that you just can't. Like the IP or their location or the phone number and the caller ID on the phone number and all those different pieces that like we just can't do ourselves. We do not work for the RBI. We are not NSA agents. Like we don't have access to this kind of information in a way that these tools do to inform us about what is actually going on here. So if you can, that's like first line of defense. I think the other piece to that too is like when you get to the video interview, you'll also be able to tell, like, yeah, deepfake technology is good, but like not so sophisticated that you can't tell something's off or that like that looks like Martin or I right now. What I am a bit nervous about is when the technology like catches up and we get to a point that like we can't tell. Like then I think we'll also have to rely on a lot of these tools even more to tell us that information that we can't surface.
Hmm.
Um, I hope that kind of answers the question a bit.
That's good. There's an interesting one here, and I have to kind of interpret the question.
Yeah.
But it's from Nung. Uh, Based on sort of your experience, when it comes to like the internal side of putting your hand up and saying like this is a fraudulent
Hmm.
candidate, like there is a certain amount of like intuition and gut feel there, and
Hmm.
then there's also the like obviously problematic area of like, oh, I feel like this person's AI or
Hmm.
fraud, and they're not. Like what, how does evidence, how do you have an evidence based approach to like, hey, this is what we're dealing with?
Yeah, great question. Because this can be so difficult, and I think very early on for myself too, there was a lot of the self doubt of like, is this actually happening? Is what I think happening? But I think also scammers are kind of counting on that self doubt to be able to prey on that and be successful. So, but then you also have to, on the other side, you have to be careful about accusing people about these types of things as well. And I've even had like, it can be obvious when someone is reading from a prompt, but I've also had candidates where they were speakers and they are they have practiced to make reading sound natural. And so I've had calls where I'm like, I'm pretty sure this person is using AI to answer a question because the flow is just off and they're like quoting percentages of things and they keep coming back to these points and it's just not a natural way of speaking, but they were a public speaker and so it didn't sound like they were reading. It sounded like a natural cadence, but the amount of time to think and then the depth of the answer was off. And so I think like there is a fine line between I think someone's using AI and versus like I know they're using AI. And sometimes you will not be 100% positive. I
Yeah.
think there are times where you can be 80% positive, but you also need to be wary because if you are like, I think there's a 20% chance that they're not, and I'm going to put them forward to the next round. Well, then you also run into this kind of like, which happens all the time with hiring too, where you're like, I don't know, I don't want to be the one to say no, so I'm going to put them on to the next stage, and then someone else is like, well, I don't want to be the one that says no, and then they go to the next stage, and then you end up in a place where you're like, wait a minute, this person is going to get the job, but like I'm a no. And it's kind of the same thing when then like, well, but the risk here is like, oh, it's a mishire. The risk here is your mishire may take your information, your data hostage,
Yeah.
and exploit the company. And
Huge risk.
so it is a very, very fine line. But I think regardless, the way I kind of get around this too, and the way I kind of like have peace with it myself is that I have disclosures in a bunch of our comms, in our email comms, around the use of AI, saying like, it's okay if you use it. Everyone uses it. Just let us know ahead of time to
Mm-hmm.
say that you're using it. And I have that in when I'm reaching out to book the interview. I have it in their calendar invite. I have it in the confirmation email for their interview. It's in a lot of places. All right. Like there's no gray area with this. They have to have seen it at some
Yeah.
point.
I don't know what you're
It's
talking about, Mary. I'm like,
hard to
ooh.
ignore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no.
And so for me, then it's like if I think they're using AI and I'm pretty sure they're using AI, but they haven't disclosed it, well, I've already kind of set the stage for that as well to say, like, if you're going to use it, that's fine, but just tell us. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
using it and not telling us, well, then I have a different culture flag around honesty. And the other thing I think you can do that we've started doing and is really, really helpful um, is when you start an interview to just say, like, do your intros, and then really like naturally say like, oh, hey, just want to double check, like, are you using any AI tools? And that's all you have to say. And that gives them a chance to be like, oh, like, no, and turn it off. So it's a really like disarming way, or to say like, oh yeah, I am. It's a really like disarming way for them to turn anything off and make that call in the moment to be honest and be themselves and be present in the way that you're hoping for them to be.
This is a great segue into this question. So we've got a nice flow here. I like it.
Mm.
Annie's asked, and this is really interesting. How do you go about navigating those types of candidates conversations in the moment where you can't really point your finger to it or call it out specifically, but you're getting basically, how do you challenge inconsistencies
Hmm.
or verify information while still maintaining like a positive candidate experience where you're like,
Totally.
no, my video is just glitching and now you think I'm AI, and it kind of
Yeah.
like there is this, especially for a candidate, right? It's like a high
Hmm.
stakes moment for them, especially if
Hmm.
it's like a meaningful opportunity for them. Like that's gonna like kind of take the wind out of their sails, and to a
Hmm.
degree as well. It's like, oh, this, I thought I was doing well, and now they think I'm using AI. Like I'm toast. I'm cooked.
Yeah. I think like I personally won't accuse someone in the moment. That is like too risky for me. I think people have varying levels of how bold they want to be. I don't want to be that bold because I don't want to offend someone, and I also don't want someone to have like a bad candidate experience, whether they're using AI or not. This isn't like a gotcha. I don't want to have that moment for someone. And there is a delicate balance there. I think like there is the part where you're like unsure and you're trying to make trying to confirm if they're using AI, and so you start asking a little bit more in-depth questions, a bit more specific to their like experience, or trying to dig deeper into it. I think the other thing too that I will do is like ask them a more casual question, something around like that you don't need AI to answer. So things like, what's your availability like, or do you have a timeline when you're thinking about starting a new role? And then does the pace and the way they answer those questions differ from when you're asking those like situational
Mm.
behavioral questions, right? If for every question they've been like, that's a good question, let me think, and then you ask them about a timeline, and then they're like, oh yeah, and blah 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 blah, or like they're talking really slowly and all of a sudden they start talking really quickly when it's like the more personal kind of question or things about the timeline or are you interviewing elsewhere, whatever the case is. That's a pretty big tell as well. But I won't accuse someone in the moment. I will ask other questions to kind of help figure out that what's the percentage of confidence I have that they're using something, or that it's not even about using something. It's about like, do they have the experience that I'm looking for, and can they speak to this authentically, right?
Mm. Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to catch and look out for. Again, it's not a gotcha if you're using AI or not. It's like, can you speak to this aspect of the role, and like, can I figure out if you're the right candidate for this? And then afterwards, there's the conversations internally of like, I think they were, I'm pretty sure. But again, it goes back to have that disclosure. If you're going to use it, just say you are. And if you're using it, or think you're using it, and you didn't say something, well, then that's a different kind of culture flag as well.
So I'm gonna sneak in here with a question that has been inspired by Hannah. So I've got like a small question ahead of time.
Mhm.
But I wanted to get to Hannah's question as well. So, uh, when you kind of say like, hey, are you using AI? Is it just like, are you using AI at all? Or do you actually, like, if they say yes, do are you looking for them to be like, I'm using ChatGPT and the voice is on and it's listening to the whole conversation and it's prompting me like answers? Or like, do you get them to disclose how they're using AI? Or is it just like, is it just a binary, are you using AI or not?
I think it's a jumping point of a question. So if they say like, "Oh yeah, I have this turned on," then it becomes more of a conversation around like, oh, "Okay, and how are you kind of using it to help in the interview today?" And again, it's not from a like accusatory perspective. It's like you want to take a more like natural, like I don't know if that's the word. Like you want to be curious about why they're using it, um, and so it's more from that perspective. And honestly, it really is just giving them a chance to either be honest or turn it off.
Right.
Because again, I've told them ahead of time, like, if you're going to use it, just tell us. And
Mm-hmm.
so if they get nervous about telling us and they're like, I'm too nervous now, I'm going to turn this off. Well, that's fine too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it becomes more of a conversation of like, oh, how are you using it than if you are.
Okay. So, Hannah's got her question is, if someone says they're using AI,
Mhm.
like how would you say that impacts the application? How are you proceeding with the interview? Like, especially like, are there trends that you've seen when you've like, okay, when I ask the question, 30% of people say that they are, and of those 30%, what happens? How does that shake up?
I've had some people say, "Oh, I used AI to like prep for this and like or I had a brain dump and I put it into AI and it kind of helped like organize my thoughts." That's fine. Like we all do that. That's totally fine. Um I think that again is different than like you have a model open that is feeding you answers that you are reading. And so it's more about like, okay, if they say yes, well, what's the how? And so was they use it as a jumping point or are they relying on it for the information? And that's the difference because it's also like, well, if you're relying on it for the information, can you actually do this job without using AI?
Yeah.
Versus like we use AI in our jobs, we use it day to day. Are you using it as a jumping point? Are you using it to organize your information? Are you using it to make yourself more efficient in a different way? Versus I'm using it to tell me things that I'm just not sure about.
Gotcha. Um, yeah, there's no real like M dashes when it comes to like people talking, right? So there's not
Yeah.
so it kind of comes down to just being hyper perceptive and and empathetic and a handful of things. This has been great. We're at time. There was never a shortage of questions. Thanks, chat, to all of your questions. I think we might have time for one more if I see it sneak in. But while we're waiting for that to come in, Mary, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I have one more thing we didn't talk about was like the value of referrals because that's like a huge way to combat fraud. It's like, oh, I know, so I've worked with this person. I know they're real.
They're real.
They exist. And they were great to work with. And so I'm also, it's been really interesting because I'm seeing a lot of like really early stage startups trying to capitalize on like a referral market and using AI to kind of map that out and make introductions and things like that too. So I think we will start to see referrals also start to have a bit more weight as we try to like combat all this fraud that's been going on.
Cool. No, that Mary, as I said, your 5 minute lightning talk at the summit was extraordinary. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This 60-minute session did not have a dull moment to it. I think everybody learned something. The chat was going crazier than I have ever seen it before. So this is definitely the right topic to be talking about. Um, Thank you. Thanks to all the folks that are listening. And I think, yeah, we'll call it here. Give folks a whopping 4 minutes back to their day. Thanks so much,
Awesome.
Mary.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for joining. I hope this was helpful.